Let's be honest, folks, dark humor is like the unofficial language of first responders. It's the duct tape holding sanity together in a world held together by, well, considerably less duct tape than you'd think. But here's the thing about duct tape. It's incredibly versatile, but you don't want to rely on it to hold together, say, a suspension bridge or a marriage, or, well, you get the idea. Sometimes that dark humor, that gallows humor, it stops being a pressure valve and starts becoming a bit of a warning siren. It's not always easy to spot the difference, especially when you're in the thick of it. So, in this video, we're going to unpack 5 signs that dark humor might be trying to tell you something important, like a smoke alarm that's really into charades, which, come to think of it, is a terrible idea. If you or someone you know is a first responder and you're picking up what I'm putting down here, this video is for you. Stick around because we're going deep into the trenches of first responder mental health, and trust me, it's a lot less scary than an actual trench, probably. First up, and listen closely because this one can be sneaky, is when the humor takes a hard left from laughing to keep from crying and ends up at laughing because crying seems pointless. We're talking about that creeping cynicism, that sense that everything is a joke, but not in a ha-ha way, more in a bleak existential dread kind of way. You might notice a tendency to dehumanize patients or victims, not out of malice, but as a defense mechanism. It's easier to deal with tragedy when you distance yourself emotionally, and that's understandable to a point. But when every call becomes a punchline, when nothing seems to matter anymore, that's a sign that the humor might be masking something deeper. It's like you've built a wall of laughter to keep the darkness out, which worked for a while, but now you're trapped behind it, and the only thing you can hear is the echo of your own increasingly hollow jokes. This next one is a bit of a doozy, and it often goes hand in hand with the first one. It's when humor becomes the primary coping mechanism, the go-to response for any and all emotional discomfort. You know what I'm talking about? Someone tries to talk about a tough call, and the deflectors go up, the jokes fly faster, and suddenly everyone's laughing to avoid actually feeling anything. Look, I get it. Vulnerability is scary. Talking about trauma is tough. But when humor becomes the only way you can communicate your emotions, you're essentially bottling up all that pain. And trust me, that bottle has a way of eventually exploding, and it's usually not pretty. Think of it like this. If your car's check engine light came on, you wouldn't just crank up the radio and pretend you didn't see it, would you? Or maybe you would. I don't know your life. But ignoring the problem doesn't make it go away, and neither does laughing it off. Chapter 3, Increased Irritability, Apathy or Recklessness. This one might seem like it's coming out of left field, but trust me, it's all connected. When that dark humor starts to curdle, you might notice other changes creeping in. Maybe you're more irritable, quicker to anger, even over small things. Maybe you just don't care as much anymore about your job, your relationships, your PlayStation trophy collection. Or maybe you're engaging in riskier behavior, both on and off the job. Suddenly that hold my beer and watch this impulse isn't just a joke, it's your default setting. These are all classic signs of burnout, my friends, and it's not something to be ignored. Think of it like this. If you were a cartoon character and your emotional state was represented by the little lines around your head, well, those lines would be going haywire right now. And not in the fun, zany way, more in the I need a hug and a therapist kind of way. Chapter 4. Humor that alienates or harms others. Now this one is where things start to get really tricky, because it's not just about your own well-being anymore. It's about the well-being of those around you. Remember, humor is subjective. What one person finds funny, another might find offensive, hurtful, or just plain weird. When that dark humor starts to bleed into your interactions with others, when you find yourself making jokes that create tension, make people uncomfortable, or cross lines you wouldn't normally cross, that's a big red flag. It's like you're trying to share a coping mechanism that's no longer working for you. And it's starting to rub off on everyone else in the worst way possible. It's like offering someone a sip of your lukewarm, day-old coffee and being genuinely surprised when they don't want it. Chapter 5. Escalating Mental Health Struggles. Okay, folks, we're at the final red flag, and it's a big one. If you're noticing any of the previous signs, chances are you're already dealing with some level of emotional distress. But when that distress starts to manifest in more serious ways, it's time to sound the alarm. We're talking about increased substance use, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or that 24/7 energy drink habit that's starting to worry your dentist. We're talking about withdrawing from loved ones, isolating yourself, pushing away the people who care about you the most. And most importantly, we're talking about thoughts of self-harm. If you're having these thoughts, please reach out for help. You are not alone, and there is no shame in asking for support. Outro, don't let laughter mask the pain. Look, I know this has been a lot, but it's important stuff. Dark humor is as much a part of first responder culture as sirens and those weird, vaguely threatening calendars you guys love so much. It's a coping mechanism, a bonding ritual, a way to find light in the darkest of places. But like any tool, it can be misused. When humor starts to become a crutch, when it prevents you from dealing with your emotions in a healthy way, it's time to take a step back and reassess. Remember, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. And it's okay to laugh at the absurdity of it all, as long as you're also taking care of yourself and each other. Dark humor is a natural part of first responder culture. When used appropriately, it can be a powerful tool for coping, bonding, and staying resilient in a high-stress job. However, it's important to recognize when humor stops being helpful and starts becoming a red flag for emotional distress. By staying self-aware and supporting each other, first responders can ensure that humor remains a source of strength, not a mask for suffering.